welcome. I have returned from the dead, but today you are watching another Shared Screens review. Joining me today as part of Shared Screens on the ones and twos, we have Alec Bobko. How you doing, Alec?
Doing good today.
Fantastic. That other wonderful face you are seeing is Carlos, our good friend, or AKA Nerd Today. How you doing, Carlos?
Doing really good. What's up, guys?
I'm sure you were just ecstatic to be here on a Sunday, giving us your nice Sunday easy day.
Oh yeah, no, this is actually fun. So I love doing
Oh,
this stuff. So it's actually a good Sunday so far.
fantastic. I like that. I like that a lot. So you are joining us, and this is sort of like a, let's say, like our beta testing of like having
Hmm.
guests come in. You were the first choice, so you should feel honored
Oh
of
man. Mm.
having guests come in and review some titles for us. We are reviewing a game called Wizordum, and we received a code. Thank you, Apogee Entertainment, for sending that code to us. I'm going to ask you, what is Wizordum?
So Wizordum, very much like this, me piloting this program or early access. It's an early access game right now. So we got that from Emberheart Games. They're the developers. It's a Doom clone, in the truest sense, very 90s esque, but it has an interesting setting, right? So we're in this magical world, beautiful colors. I'm talking about stuff you don't see in Doom, right? You don't see blues, you don't see purples. You
Sure.
see, oh, it's just red, blood,
Yeah.
guts, gray, which is fine.
That's
That
what
works for
sold. That's what sold back then, you know?
yeah, exactly, and that works for Doom. But
Mhm.
for Wizordrum, it's this kind of beautiful, kind of broken down world, and you're going through it, and I mean, to a T, very much Doom clone, and that's fine. That's really good. I
Mm.
think that's a really good, strong outing, especially from Emberheart Games. I think they really nailed that aspect
Cool.
of it. But there is some modern leanings to it. There's a new weapon system, something that you don't expect from a Doom clone. Doom clones
Okay.
typically always have like big guns,
Right.
shotguns, things like that. This is all magical based. So we
Sure.
have little magical rings that you use to shoot fire, or my favorite weapon, which is like this ice staff thing, which I'll get into
Ooh,
later. I love
fantastic.
this thing. I don't know why I love it. It has such a satisfying sound, dude. Let me
That
tell you
helps.
this, also, dude. Also, it has like such a satisfying sound, and then at the end, when you freeze an enemy, you can do this thing where you hit like I was playing on controller for
Mm,
all intents and purposes because I can't mouse and keyboard, man.
same.
This doesn't
I'm
work,
with you.
man.
Control the game.
And you hit B, and you just do this hand motion, and they just
I like it.
uh,
I like it. I
dude
can envision it.
is satisfying. We were talking pre-show about like fidgety things. That was like a fidget thing. That was like a very satisfying.
Just
vi- Uh,
satisfactory, yeah.
yeah,
I can get behind that, yeah.
yeah, but I mean, through and through, like I said, Doom clone. I think that is to its detriment and
Ooh, okay.
its praising, of it.
Mhm,
Because it's cool to see something like that where I mean, obviously we have modern Doom, right? We have Doom
mhm,
Eternal, Doom
mhm.
2016, which are amazing games. Don't
Fantastic.
get me wrong. But this is like a very old school
Mhm.
form of that. And there's a lot of pitfalls there, you know?
Ooh,
There's a lot of things that don't necessarily translate as well in
o
2024.
okay.
Um we did preface this is an early access game.
Mhm,
So it's really hard. If you hear me saying anything too negative, I'm going to preface it with saying I don't know if it's an early access decision. If it's this is what their core gameplay mechanic is going to be in the 1.0
mhm.
that's rumored to be coming out later this year, at least on their roadmap
Sure.
on Steam. Um, I don't know if that's what they want to go with, like if this is what we're going to have
Mhm,
down the line, or if it's something that is part of that early access,
right.
like beta
Mhm.
testing, working out the cobwebs, seeing what fits, what doesn't.
Does it
Uh,
just
Good.
like the overall feel of the game, does it feel like an early access title, or does it feel like this could be the final product if they launched?
Certain aspects,
Okay.
definitely certain aspects, and I think that comes to more technical things. I think in my
Okay.
notes with
Naturally.
an yeah, one little early access thing that's not too much of a negative. It was very hard to use the map.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
you like pulling up the map. Actually, like in Doom as well, you can kind of move around while the map, and you see yourself as like this
Mhm,
like triangle. There wasn't still a clear cut of that, like, in the very beginning, so my first 3 play sessions, there wasn't really, like, a clear cut, like, where am I supposed to go? I was getting a little lost
sure.
in the levels. There was a patch,
Ooh,
about 2, 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, I wanna say,
mhm,
and when that patch went out, I noticed that, let's say I got a key to open a door. Now there was a part of the map where that key could be used that was glowing.
Ooh, okay, so
W
small steps to, like, they
Mhm.
know the map needs work,
Yeah,
essentially. Cool, I
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and I know they also have a Discord server as well where you can do
Mhm.
suggestions and stuff. I should check that out. I have one major gripe we'll get into later
Sure.
about the game, but, um, yeah, there was, like that was, like, a very, like, minute negative thing
Mhm.
that came with, like, the early access
Sure.
nature of
And
it.
and I can see like the old school game players, like some of us on this panel, might be able to like navigate like that kind of pixel art. But some people like jumping into it if they're not used to that kind of old school game, they're gonna need a map. So like that, it's gonna be a little difficult to navigate if you're not used to if you can't really tell what you're looking at, which sometimes pixel art games can be like that. So
Yeah.
sometimes you need a little help from the map. So a good map can be useful. So
Yeah, oh, absolutely, man. And I think there's a lot of glowing things with this too. I mean, again, like those weapons are so unique to anything I've ever experienced in a Doom clone. I mean, again, we have Duke Nukem's, we have
Mhm.
like what was that game that John Romero made after like his fallout with it? It was like some Katana Kata. Is that what it's
Sure,
called?
I have no idea.
It was like I forget. I think I remember the ad campaign. So it was like
Sure.
you're gonna like this or you're a bitch or something like that. It was like the ad campaign, like in a Game Pro or so. I was like, damn,
Well, I
way to
guess
call.
I'm a bitch.
Yeah, I'm 10, John Romero. I'm just reading Game Pro for the first time. What the hell, man? I don't even
Uh,
know who you are.
that's really funny. I like that a lot. So my follow up question to this before we get into more in depth thoughts is this just Doom with magic, or is there
Yeah,
more to there? Okay,
no, for the most part, it is just Doom with magic.
okay,
While playing it, I saw some people in my head. I was like, oh, I know a couple people who would love this game.
ooh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying it has an audience, right? There's
Yes.
definitely an audience for
Mhm,
this game, and then two, because you agreed this is sort of just Doom with magic. Is that
mhm.
okay? Is that
Yeah,
then good enough though? Just not again early access, but like that as a premise and like that as the driving force. Is that enough?
yeah, yeah, I think so. I think it's very it's very like you can pick up play. I think if you are
Mhm.
definitely a fan of this series or these type of games like Doom clones, I think this is definitely going to speak to you in one way, shape, or form. If you're interested in them, I think this is going to be something you can kind of wet your toes into, especially in early
Sure.
access, because you're learning alongside, the developers, right? Like
Uh-huh.
everyone's kind of in this together. It's the kind of
Mhm.
beauty of like early access.
Mhm.
Um, I think that it lends itself very well to that genre and to those fans.
Awesome. That's really good to hear because just like because I watched a trailer of it when once they sent us a code, I was like, well, you know what this game is. Obviously, I don't think you I'd heard of it either before I hit you up about it.
Mhm.
And I was like, this just looks interesting. Like it's something that like I never would have thought just adding a little magic coat of paint could do that much heavy lifting, but it
Oh,
really
yeah.
seemed like it could. So okay, before we get into our lead thoughts, I just want to pimp a little bit of shared screens content that's coming to you soon. But there should be a so Carlos, you probably heard Akira Toriyama has passed away. Rest in peace to one of the best. But Alec, Chris, and I believe maybe Chris will be there. I'm not sure, but we're going to be doing or by the time this is up and you're seeing this, it might already be up. So give that a watch. We're going to be reminiscing about some of our Dragon Ball memories. I will definitely be going into a lot about my college days of playing Raging Blast 2. And
Hell yeah.
I don't
Great
know if you
game.
know what that game is, but
Oh,
3D arena
100%.
fighter. I fucking love it, and it has a bonkers roster. I don't know if you remember the roster, but there are some people that I can't even name. They're like androids or aliens or something, and there's a lot of aliens, but you know what I mean. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, really, really kick ass roster, but more of it is about Akira Toriyama, one of the best to ever lace him up, if you will, for the manga genre. And then video games, a lot of video game reference with like what is it, Dragon Quest and
Mhm.
others like that. So we'll get into that later. And then soon there should be another episode of Elite Four, our Pokemon podcast. So I'm not sure what the theme or topic of that will be, but give that a view as well. So Carlos, let's steer it back to Wizordum. Give me
Yeah.
your thoughts on the game in depth, starting with a negative.
So my biggest gripe, and I think I sent you a message, Austin. We've
Mhm,
been in communication once I got the code.
mhm.
Dude, I've never felt motion sickness playing a
Right.
video game before in my life, other than VR. Obviously, I have like little
Rightfully
bits,
so.
and yeah, and that makes sense, right? Like you put something on, your brain's like in a different space.
Mhm.
For context, I got the monitor I have here is like a 32, no, I'm sorry, 27-inch, like kind of curved 1440p monitor. And I've played a bunch of games since I've gotten this monitor on it, no issues whatsoever. And I played first person games, no issues whatsoever. Popping in Wizordum, um, it was the weirdest experience. Like the first 10 minutes, I think also I like because I recorded like footage as well, just in
Mhm.
case we
Sure.
needed it. And I think in like the first like 15 minutes, you see me pause for like an extended 2 minutes, then like play around with the options to be like, what am I missing here? I
Uh,
eventually had to that first session was probably the worst first session to play in any video game I've ever played in my life.
Whoa.
And that's no like I was so excited to jump in and see
Mhm.
these colors and play
Mhm.
with the magic, but I got so sick so quickly
Man.
that even you, I mean, when I messaged you this, you were like, dude, are you gonna be okay to finish
Yeah,
this?
I
I'm
was
like, I
like
think I got this, man.
yeah, I was like, "Look, if it's, like, a detriment to play the game, don't do it, dude. Like, I care about you more than this review."
I know. And then part of me was like, no, no, the people need to know. I'll finish it, god damn it, if I need to.
For the people.
Yeah. But I eventually played around with the settings. I think I would highly suggest, even if you're ever so slightly motion sick, which again, I've never experienced. I'm driving, like if I'm a passenger on the
Mhm.
bus, anything like that, I've experienced. Never in video gaming.
Sure.
I would turn off weapon bobbing and I believe camera bobbing. Cause it
Okay.
does. It's like trying to mimic like you going through this
Mhm.
world. And literally the motion I'm making right now is kind of what it was doing. And eventually I was like, holy shit.
I just need that to not happen.
Yeah, I don't know why, and it's so up, like, it's so far up, like, the
Mhm.
setting, it's like 100 for each thing.
Mm,
I turned them down completely to 0. I played around a little bit with,
sure.
like, maybe 50%, maybe this is it, but they have to be turned off complete. That's a major, major gripe I had with that game.
Pro tip for the all jumping into Wizordum if you feel a
Yeah,
little motion sick.
yeah.
Weapon bobbing and, like, player bobbing, is that what it was?
Camera bobbing, yeah.
Camera bobbing, okay.
I think that's the official wording in the settings. Um, that was the hardest thing I had to go through in video gaming. That was the funniest thing I've like played Dark Souls and I mean died a million times. I'm like, oh okay, I'm bad at this game,
Mhm.
not the game.
Sure.
Like I'm just bad at this. This
Alright.
was like this sucks. This
Yeah.
is horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on. I mean, that was once I got that down and that first session was out of the way, man, I I was definitely in for a blast. That
Yeah.
that
Good
game
to hear.
really hit, man. Of course, again, like kind of touching upon what we talked earlier with the map, that was a big issue for my
Mhm.
first three PlayStations, especially second and third PlayStations. I was the sessions, pardon me. I
Mhm.
was stuck in the sewer level, which I believe is level 3 out of the 6, I wanna
Okay.
say there is.
Sure.
Um, again, early access. It's like 6 or 7 and for the first episode, what they called episode
Okay.
2 is coming down the line on their pipeline, they
I
said.
didn't even know it was episodic.
Yeah, I didn't know until after I beat it, and I looked into I was
The
just going on
program.
their Steam page, and they have the roadmap out, which
Mhm.
is nice. With version 1.0, they said tentatively coming Q4 this year, so their Q4, I'm assuming is the end of, like, 2023 2024, pardon me. Um The map, as I mentioned, was very difficult, man.
Mhm.
Trying to figure out where I was going, and the best thing about the game is like if you saw enemies, that means you are on the right path.
Okay.
If there's people trying to attack you, like orcs and stuff, that means hey, you're probably along somewhere you need to be, or
Mhm.
somewhere you're going to need to be later. And if you even unlock something, let's say if you unlocked a bronze key, as I mentioned,
Mhm.
and then you go try to look for the bronze door, the closer you got to a bronze door, the more enemies there would be there. We're like, "Oh, okay. I know if I'm like go around this corner and stuff." And that kind of helped in the early
Sure.
going. There was, I believe, episode or pardon me, chapter 4 they called it, or whatever, the fourth episode or
Mhm.
level, pardon me.
Mhm.
When you back outside into the world and this like burning kind of village kind of thing, there was that's when the patch hit. In
Okay.
that time. I noticed there was a patch before I loaded it up. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll download it now and just
Mhm.
get it out of the way."
Mhm.
And I pulled up the map again just to see. I'm like, man, because it fills out as you're going around. I was like, all right, there's probably a wall around here. And I saw this glowing thing. I'm like, wait, is that glowing gold? And I'm like,
Was that the first thing
oh,
you did when you saw there was a patch? Like, I'm going straight to the map to see if they had updated this thing?
Well, no, honestly,
Okay.
I was just assuming it was might have been controller stuff because there was a
Sure.
little controller error. Like I would have to restart it a couple times just to
Oh.
get it fully to recognize the right. I was playing on an Xbox Series
Mhm.
controller, but the right stick to actually move for camera movement.
Oh.
Every once in a while, it just wouldn't work.
Early
But I was like,
access
yeah, I was like,
helps.
yeah, early access, not anything detrimental enough to like write home to mom about. Um, but when I opened the map that one PlayStation, I was like, "Wait, stuff is glowing now." I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, that's gold, that's silver, that's brown. Oh, now it's telling
Helpful,
me." Yeah,
right, yeah.
I was like, "Thank God." Because I needed that.
Mhm.
I didn't touch about it too much earlier, but like the checkpoint system, I guess I did it in a
Okay.
way. This game is very 90s, and it's very unforgiving when it comes to checkpoints.
Okay.
They're very
Is it
few
a
and far
is it a
between.
one-to-one to, like, 90 checkpoints? Because I know some people say, like, "Oh, it's really hard," but, like, sometimes it's like, well, there are still some modern takes on, like, a difficult checkpoint in the game kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's more modern, I would say. It's
Okay.
just they are definitely spaced out.
Sure.
They are definitely way spaced out. I could never tell like what was like when it would autosave. I'm assuming that was the checkpoint,
Mhm.
and typically that's where you would restart if you like died or anything, which I
Mhm.
died many times in this game.
I can imagine.
um, yeah, so there were very few and far between
Okay.
compared to a lot of more modern games. Even like I said, kudos to Doom Eternal and Doom 2016, which are
Mhm.
like obviously the modern
Genuinely
Dooms, right? Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, they are fantastic games. Their checkpoint system, where some people I'm sure could complain about them, they are nowhere near how it was back in the 90s
Mhm.
and early 2000s with some of these games, man. Like this very felt like that, and part of me, when I wrote my notes, I was like, I don't know if this is like what the final product's going to be and what
Sure.
they intend the final product to be, because
Mhm.
they're the developers. They want to hit a certain feel for the nostalgia, which again they nailed for so many good things.
Mhm.
But with the good comes with the bad, So I
Mhm.
don't know if this was early access or if this was the developer's decision
Sure.
to move forward.
And I know we're sort of in like the quote unquote bad section, but
Mhm.
does it feel unfair or just difficult in terms of the checkpoint?
Not unfair. No,
Okay.
it just feels difficult.
Okay.
It just feels difficult.
So doable, just,
Yeah.
a little tweaking here and there.
Yeah, I would maybe like for every like third checkpoint, maybe put one in the middle, or something like that,
Sure.
or maybe like two, just like there has to be something small in between. Cause like the
Mhm.
levels can be large and you can again lose yourself very easily. Not so much so now with the new map, but
Mhm. Helpful.
what I would say is not fair
Okay.
and kind of difficult was that final boss fight.
Ooh.
That final boss fight, it it took a while. It took a while. There was a lot of cursing involved as well. I'm glad and I'm glad I didn't record it because it was just me just, like, stopping, quitting.
Uh-huh.
But the difficulty spiked so much, and I put a little quote here 'cause it reminded me of the '90s to a certain degree, but it was like a good and a bad, right? So
Mhm.
this last level starts, you're in this final castle, everything kinda feels like the final level, right?
Mhm.
And you go into the main atrium, there's no enemies. So I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, shit, this is weird."
Mhm.
And every weapon type that you've come across so far in the level is ammoed out to, like, the gills. Like, the whole level is just ammo and life. Just
Yeah,
anything you need,
that's
armor and everything. I was like, "Oh, this is the final boss."
yeah, it's always a scary sight to see. Some people are
Yeah.
like, "Woohoo!" And you're like, "You don't know. You don't know
Yeah.
what this means."
Oh, man, yeah, it was that automatic save, you're like, "Wait, why did you save?" Um,
Yep.
it was cool, though, like, it was very hype at first. My initial, like,
So
reaction.
presentation-wise, it was cool.
Yeah, I got there, I was like, "Oh, we're in the final fight." I was like, "Oh god, every weapon's, like, here, I was like, "Oh, I'm in." It felt like the closest thing I could equate it to was, like, watching The Matrix, and when Neo and Trinity asked for guns, and, like, those
Sure.
rows of guns just come
Uh-huh.
around them, it was like,
Hell yeah, dude. That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's, like, the height level, like, I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is gonna be nice." And then I started the fight,
Oh, no.
and, it felt cheap. It really did. So for context, you're fighting like this giant orc, like on a giant metal stallion thing. I don't know what the hell this thing is.
Cool.
Because you see him for 2 seconds, and next thing you know, like 80 enemies around him start
No.
generating, and that's where it became like, all right, man. I kept getting for the most part for the long time. I kept getting like 3/4 of his health, and
Mhm.
then just because he is like so OP and then there's also enemies around him,
Mhm.
I just kept dying for the longest time. I swear to God, I got lucky. I
Ooh.
got very lucky, and then also got frustrated because I was like, I can't be the only one struggling with this. Let me go on YouTube,
Mhm.
and I looked on YouTube, and there was I unfortunately didn't grab the creator's name. He beat him in like 4 minutes, and I was like, all right.
This mother.
I was like, you son of a bitch. All right. You know what? This is not fair. You shouldn't be rubbing this in other people's faces because there's other people like me. But no, man, he did like it was I put it here, it felt like fighting the final boss of a 90s
Okay.
fighting game.
Oh,
So much so. Like and that's because back in the day, at least for fighting games, it would be like a normal difficulty. Let's say for instance, I have here Mortal Kombat 2, right? So because it's funny to me at least. So you're like going through it, you're fighting everyone. Then you get to the sub boss, which is Motaro or Kitara, and he's pretty difficult. But if you got the level enough and you can beat him, you're good. Then Shao Kahn comes around, and this
mhm.
motherfucker is just OP for no
This
reason.
dude.
Hitting, yeah, dude, he's hitting you with his hammer like 80 times. I'm like, he's spamming moves. I'm like, what is going on? Why do I keep losing? That's what this felt like. That's the
Mm,
closest I felt to this level of frustration
mhm,
in like a video game.
mhm.
And again, I've played like Bloodborne and stuff like that and haven't gotten far only because I know I'm not good at the game.
Sure.
And those games are difficult and that's like the whole design point, right?
Mhm.
This game was fun to a certain extent with some of the difficulties until this fight.
Mm.
This fight just felt frustrating.
So
and
this
I
fight
don't
needs retooled, essentially, is
I
what it
would
seems like.
say so, yeah. I don't know what needs to be retooled about it because part of me was like, maybe not so many enemies at the end,
Mhm,
like when you get into that last third or something. I don't. It's hard to pinpoint to me what I would change
mhm.
about this fight, but something about it needs balancing. I think.
Did it feel like, I mean, in my experience when you're facing difficult bosses, did it feel like you were genuinely making progress as you went? Because like you'll be like, I got him down to like three-fourths, and then I can easily get him down to half, and I can easily get him to, you know what I mean? Was there at least progress and like you were learning the patterns or anything like that at all?
No, that's
Okay,
that's where it came from because I'm like, oh, if I strife, I keep going
sure.
around, 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 I'm doing it, and that held true. What you were just saying
Mhm.
to that three quarters.
Okay.
Get him down to three quarters health, or a quarter health. Pardon me. That held pretty true. I'm like, all right, I'm messing up. I'm going left. I'm hiding here when I shouldn't. I'm going right. I got to
Mhm,
take out these guys first. And then that final quarter, something clicks, at least to me,
mhm.
in like the gameplay design, and it just goes like to hell in a handbasket. Like out of nowhere. It just felt like, all right, cool. Now the actual devil's coming out to fight
Uh-huh.
for
Now the
no
boss fight
reason.
is beginning.
Yeah, it was like, why? Why is everything? And then at that point, you're like at 12 health, like no armor, like
Mhm.
barely any ammo. You're like, God damn it.
I can imagine.
Yeah, no, it was really difficult. But man, I with all that negative stuff,
Mhm.
it's so surprising and so awesome to see what Ember Heart's made. Like again, starting that first level and just seeing the bright blue skies and the
Sure.
clouds, and one of these games are like, oh wow, this is weird. This is nice.
So
Like,
such a simple change, but it's like, man, I needed this.
yeah, and that doesn't even, like, take away from what Doom is. Doom is what it's supposed to be, right? It's
Of
Mars,
course.
it's
Yeah.
red, it's,
Mhm.
fire, it's blood, it's gore, and there's gore here, don't get me wrong, there's all that stuff, but they're like, the colors were they pop so well,
So
and
it seems like a well thought out palette swap, essentially.
yeah, yeah, like, they
Cool.
really put their love into the setting. There's not much lore, not much story. I wrote
Okay.
it down in my notes, but this is, like, one of those games that I don't think you necessarily need a lot of story for, it's
Sure.
just more for the vibes.
Mhm.
Um And again, just to go back, man, the weapons are insane. Like they are absolutely fun to do. There you get a gun eventually. You
Oh,
do get a
I
gun.
did not expect that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of holding that one back. So you actually do get a gun, which was I was like, "Oh, hey, how about this? You actually get one." But it's like magical rocks or whatever and
Oh, okay.
it shoots like a 3 like spread and stuff.
Sure.
It's really
Sure.
cool. And it was fun to use after like just using fireballs or like
Mhm.
this ice staff I was mentioning, man. That weapon alone has one of the best, like, feels and, like,
Gotcha.
loops that I was doing. I was actually seeking out that ammo for the longest time just because I
Gotcha.
wanted to
Yeah.
keep using it.
Good sign. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we talking? Do we have a primary and a secondary, or just a primary?
Right now, most of them are just primary. On
Okay.
their roadmap, it seems like they're gonna introduce them in one of the future updates, probably in the spring, maybe early
Okay.
summer. will they'll have secondary stuff. It's in when you look in the controls,
Mhm.
it is an option,
Okay,
but right now it's just there, and I'm assuming it would be that the B button or circle if you were using like a PlayStation
sure.
controller. I think it's gonna be that button because, like I mentioned with the ice staff, when you're shooting and you freeze an enemy, as long as you have enough magic and you hit that button, it'll pop them.
Ooh, I like that.
So I
Another satisfaction type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Where and it's funny too with the sound design with the weapons, I think that
Mm,
was great. The music is very generic.
mm,
It's a little like, here's a little awesome thing, but we're also this is
mhm.
not amazing at the
Is
same
it
time.
is it generic to the level where it's like, it's not a negative, it's just there, it's not
Yeah,
memorable type
it
of
just
thing?
felt just there. It felt like very like how did I equate it to? I compared it to like watching a really cool B horror movie
Mhm,
where it's like, "Oh man, this story's pretty cool. Oh man, everything else is actually pretty like the sound design, the
mhm,
gore, like all the special effects are really good." And then the
mhm.
music's just very plain Jane.
It just
Just very
it does what it needs to do, and, like, that's about
yeah.
it.
Almost like yeah, it's just there just to be there because
Mhm,
they need music because 'cause it'd be
mhm.
weird to watch a movie without music.
Yeah,
Which
does
it's
it I mean, if it pro I'm sure it feels like at home, like it belongs there, but and I hate to use this term when it comes to musical, like, because I don't wanna, like, dog on the artist, of course, but, like, it's like,
Yeah,
does it feel uninspired or just a generic choice overall by the devs?
just a generic choice.
Okay,
Yeah,
which
it feels like it fits the world,
sure.
but not
which
necessarily.
sucks
Yeah,
because
okay.
Doom has such good music.
Oh, I
Like,
know. All of them too, like,
It's a good
even the
point.
back in the day. Yeah.
It's a good point.
I
When
think
Alec chimes in, he's usually got some
yeah.
stuff.
Hey, you isn't that funny? Because I think that's I didn't even equate those 2. I think that's where a lot of the frustration came with the music, where I was like, I wanted like, you expect it to be better.
Yeah. It's
'Cause I'm
subconsciously, you're just like, I this is going to hit, and then when it doesn't, it's like I said, not a detriment, but it's just like, well,
yeah. Yeah,
unfortunate.
we're halfway there. At least the weapons sound cool.
Sure,
But
sure,
yeah,
sure, sure.
even Duke Nukem. Like Duke Nukem has like a not necessarily iconic soundtrack, but it has a soundtrack that you're vibing to, you're running around and you're
And I feel
grooving to.
like Duke Nukem, I don't know why I said it like that, is such a character that even if the
Mhm.
music didn't, like, it makes up for it in other ways for, like, that
Yeah.
kind of, character
Mhm.
the way they're, describing the game as a character itself, like, I feel like it just kinda works that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It threw all yeah, it definitely threw me off. But then once you get in a groove, man, I don't know if you guys you probably saw the one trailer that got sent out with all the emails and stuff, but like where it's just like fast paced and they're moving and grooving and
Mhm, mhm.
that's when you hit that level, it's like you almost see the Matrix, man. Like when you're in, especially with this curved monitor, I was just like in, dude. I was like strifing with them. I was like going back. I was like, oh
Mhm.
wow, I haven't done something like this like since I was a kid. Like
That's
I know
always a
if I
really good sign when I'm
yeah.
playing games where, like, you can sort of find like, flow state in a game, and
Yeah.
to me, that just says they understand their gameplay. Like, they understand what
Mhm.
they're doing here. Because if you can find that state and where you feel like a badass and, like, and it's not just unloading on something, like, you're utilizing everything at your disposal, and it feels good and fun and, like,
Mhm.
high paced or whatever they're going for, but yeah, so that to me, that always spells out, yep, they know what they're doing, they've got something here, there's something here, you know what I mean? So,
Mhm. I
yeah.
don't know if you guys ever seen the meme of the guy in the convenience store, and he's like it looks like he's eating like a mango or something as people are like trying to fight him, like fist fight
Oh,
him, and they're
sure.
pushing him around, and he's like in the middle of a boss
Uh-huh.
fight, almost like if a lot of times they play that music with it. That's kind of what it felt like when there was like a couple enemies at one time, and you're like moving, and you're like, all right, I'll do health, and I'll throw this fireball over here, and I go here, and I shoot the ice thing over there, and I pop him while this guy's coming after me. Ah, shit, he hit me. Like it was like kind of like, oh wow, like I'm just in this world at this point.
That's good to hear, I like
Um,
that.
I'll be interested to see how this runs on Steam Deck. It is playable,
Ooh,
at least according
confirmed.
to their Steam page. Yeah, it has a yellow asterisk, so playable. I don't have a Steam Deck, so I don't know
Sure.
like how that equates. I know, I mean, I obviously it means it's playable, but like
Mhm.
how much tuning do you have to do to
I
it?
gotcha.
sometimes, or as somebody that does have a Steam Deck, I
Yeah.
can chime in a little bit to that. The playable, some basically, yeah, like you just said, playable means that it's not verified by Valve itself that it like basically out of the box will run perfectly.
Hmm.
It's basically means like, hey, you might have to adjust what version or some settings or adjust what version of or not the OS, but there's like some kind of back end setting that you can change to make games run better.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
It's sometimes just a compatibility thing, sometimes it's just a matter of changing some settings, but it's basically that yellow exclamation point that means playable just means that Valve themselves haven't tested it yet to be verified.
Ew.
Which makes
Okay.
sense for an early access title, if I'm
Yep.
being
Yeah.
honest. So
Yeah. I thought it was cool though that the fact that it was playable, especially in an early
sure.
access setting, because like I mean, how many? It's like ubiquitous now, right? How many people have like these Steam decks, these ROG
Hmm.
Allies, these what's the Lenovo one now that's out?
Hmm.
Like that's becoming so popular and so now mainstream, especially in a handheld setting. That it's cool that they've thought of that and from jump are developing so it's ready for that.
Hmm. Yeah, I
That was
totally
really
agree. Totally
yeah.
agree. All right, Carlos, what else you got for me?
I mean, that's about it, man. I think Ember Heart Games definitely has something nice going on right here.
Hmm.
Obviously, it's again we mentioned it's early access,
Hmm.
but I think they have a special sauce that they're working on. I think their roadmap currently they mentioned there's going to be like a second playable character. I don't know what that will
Ooh.
change. Um, that's going to be interesting to see how and what that changes.
Hmm.
Because so far, at least we're on content update number 1, so
Hmm.
there's, like, a new save system, better gamepad support, which I felt that was fine.
Hmm.
But there's, like, alternate attacks coming up soon, episode 2 is coming out at some point, in Q2 of this year, new spell system, so they're already working on so much.
Hmm.
Merchant and coins, that's one I was wondering. You
I was
do
also
receive coins, and I was like, "What am I getting these for? Is it just points?" Like
maybe because again, early access, like we said 1,000 times, maybe putting a merchant in the middle to act as another checkpoint would help with like your checkpoint issue,
Mm,
and then
yeah,
potentially if we had another character that can potentially have different buffs or whatever, and then couple that with the you said alternate moves or alternate something, and then also the
fires,
secondary,
yeah.
would that with all that coupled together, do you think that could help the boss fight with how difficult that was?
Yeah, I think so. I
So
think
maybe
so,
the boss fight itself is okay, but just the version of the playable character we have right now just isn't fully kitted out to, utilize everything that could be coming down the line.
yeah, that definitely could be a definite thing, and I'm also wondering too with the outlook of it coming with an episode 2 at some point in
Sure.
Q2, and then episode 3 at the full 1.0 release,
Mhm.
are they also gonna have, like, episode-centric bosses, right? Are they gonna have something similar
You'd
to
think
this
so,
where
right?
yeah, I would assume so. I would assume that the guy you fight in episode 1 is not the final boss, like, the
Right.
end all be all, especially with, like, the loose story that there's just, like, darkness kinda spreading throughout the world. I'm
Ooh.
assuming that would be, like, what we get at the end is, like, some version of that darkness.
Mhm.
But,
Or like
yeah,
if it's the same boss, you kinda like see his like progression and how he's different now at least, like
yeah,
every time you have to fight him to some extent.
yeah, kinda like Chrono Trigger or something
Yeah.
where you yeah, you fight Lavo so many times, and by the end, he's like a giant monster. You're like, "Oh, shit,
What
this sucks."
happened? Yeah.
"How did I hurt you? I'm the one who did this. That's on me."
This is my fault. This is my fault.
Yeah.
So okay, so it seems like the end all be all for Wizordum is there's something here, and then just let the devs keep cooking, right?
Yeah.
Does that sound right to you? Okay,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is if we're cool, I could do like the verdict right now.
good.
For me, man, Wizordrum, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. I think it mentions like there's some more modern gaming concepts, but I think some more can be implemented. Again, what we
Mhm,
mentioned earlier, the checkpoint system and maybe a little more balancing in that episode 1 boss fight. But I think the framework that they have here is just amazing that they
mhm,
have. The setting, the weapons that they have, and just the ever so slight change of it being magic based Doom
mhm,
is so much fun. And I think it'd be interesting to see what 1.0 looks like at the
mm,
end of the year, possibly if that hits the date that's supposed to. Um, what new gameplay implements, like what we're gonna get with the second player, these episodes, and where it progresses. But I think right now where it stands, I think it's very strong. It's definitely a great 7 out of 10 game. The swimming in sevens,
mhm,
as we like to say in the gaming community.
mhm.
I
I
think
mean,
it's
a
just really
7
fun.
out sorry, a 7 out of 10 for an early access title and, like, very early access, like you said, they have, like, the roadmap, and we're kinda early on in that. Like, that's
Yeah.
a really solid, like, first start for getting in. Like this could easily be like, oh, it's early access, we're working on it. It could easily be like a 5, right? And it's
Yeah.
just like, oh, I still kind of see it, but like it's not coming together. There's something here, and like you've been talking about the entire review. So do you see people jumping into this right away, or do you think that like okay, because there are some people who are like, I'm an early access person, where it's like they always jump in, they
Mhm.
get in early. Like, do you have to be the type of person to get what you want out of this game, or is it something where like it's a solid 7 right now and you could play it and enjoy it for what it is? Does that make
I
sense?
think yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, I think for the people who love playing early access games and kind of seeing like, the sausage gets made
Mhm.
as you're playing the game, I think this is a good title to jump in right now.
Gotcha.
I think for the general audience and general person just looking for Steam games and stuff and something to play, I think I would wait a little bit, maybe
Gotcha.
to that 1.0,
Mhm.
just to see what nets out. Because there's a possibility of this like staying a 7 out of 10,
Mhm.
and maybe by the 1.0 release, maybe becoming an 8 out of 10 or
Exactly.
7.5 out of 10. Like there's again, so much of the groundwork is done and really well
Mhm.
made that I think with just some slight improvements, it definitely can increase the score.
Right.
And who knows, maybe with that 1.0 release, you don't have to turn off weapon bobbing and camera bobbing, or
Maybe they
the
tooled
boss
that a little bit.
fights. Yeah, maybe you are stronger, or you can become stronger if as long as you're good at the game to fight these bosses and not feel like cheap, you know,
Sure. Sure.
things
I
like
got you.
that. It's gonna be interesting to see where this nets out, and then who knows too? Maybe it'll get verified by Steam, and you can play it on your Steam Deck and on the
Yep.
go, and that could be like one of the a really good experience on the go.
I like that a lot. Yep.
Yeah.
So, as it stands right now, with like early access as of what is today's date? March 17th. This is a 7 out of 10 from Carlos, aka Nerd A Day, reviewing it for us at Shared Screens. Thank you for watching. This has been our review of Wizordum. I'm going to wave goodbye to the camera. Goodbye.